Welcome to the Golden State Media Concepts Sex Podcast, a show that examines all aspects of sexuality, from physical to emotional to spiritual. Join our hosts as they discuss age-old questions, common misconceptions, and the latest topics surrounding sex. They'll tackle topics about sexuality from the complicated to the hilarious and everything in between. GSMC Sex Podcast is your show for all of your questions about sex, even some you might not have thought of yet.
Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Sex Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Andra, where the topic about sex is from the point of view of an older woman. Hello, all you out there. I'm sure you're reading the news. Well, really, it's being thrown in your face, because everywhere you turn, it's about COVID. Or just in general, kids are getting to go back to school full time, and in certain areas and certain states. So that's something else. I do have a bleeding heart for those who do have to work for a living. Very difficult if you're a single parent and you cannot get out. Never mind have sex. But I am actually going to start out the show with my sexual position pick. Try something different. I know I always promise a new one. And wherever within the show I please to put it. So I want to start with it. And that is the pretzel dip. Might make you look at pretzels differently, but it is just that. And we are going to tell you. Now, the name, obviously the pretzel dip, no food involved. It is considered a very freaky sex position, believe it or not. If you want to try a little bit and try something new, this is one of those positions for you. It allows for deep, powerful thrust, but at a sideways angle. That feels totally different than, that straight on thrust. It's not considered one of the intimate positions, but you will get your rocks off nonetheless. Gotta try something out. There's a lot of eye contact. You know what a pretzel looks like, so you're going to be interwoven and tied up with your partner, with your body parts. So it is very physical. So really take your time in doing it. But this is how you do it. Now, as your partner, you have your partner kneeling over you, and then wrap one leg around their waist, while the other leg rests under their butt. And then you come in at whatever angle you like, but, on a side angle, and penetration is achievable. They can sit there and watch you. You can sit there and watch them. It's really simple to get into, but you still don't want to hurt yourself. So pay attention to what you do and make sure that your partner and you are both comfortable doing that. Don't like it? Don't do it. So, on to what our topic is of today. Every so often, I love to look at different sexual rituals around the world. And I'm telling you, we do have some weird ones. But it is what is normal to them sexually in other countries and places and cities and, name it, it's there. So you do have to respect that because they probably think we're weird. And we are, these are some unusual unusual sexual practices that are from around the world, and they still do exist and are being followed up until now. They're still doing it and beyond. We may think they're a little weird, or you would never try them, or how can they do that? But, like I said, different country, different rules, different views, and we must respect them for that. So let's start us out. Now, some of them you probably heard before. There are a few new ones in there, too, I saw. But we're going to do them anyway. Haha. Because I said so. So, now we're in Indonesia. And with Indonesia people, they can have sex outside of marriage during Pon celebration. Not really that big deal. We all do, that, having marital, like in other countries, having outside marital, having relationships outside the marriage bed is, oh my goodness, forbidden. However, they have one day of celebration that it can be done without an issue. Now, this is according to a myth in Indonesia. People believe that the couples have to spend the night with someone except their husband or wife. And they must have sexual intercourse between them. It is a requirement. It is also said that if they get intimate with the same partners for all the 7 celebrations, because there are 7 celebrations of this, so they're really having some fun over there, they did earlier, like that they were doing with, it brings them good luck and wishes, believe it or not. So there is a U factor and a nice factor. Now we're going to ancient Egypt. Public masturbation ceremonies, they still have them in Egypt, and they are very obsessed with jerking off. They also, it was believed by the people that the ebb and flow of the Nile was originated by their god of creation's ejaculation. So, with this belief in their values, the men of Egypt spiritually masturbate into the Nile to assure an ample amount of water for their crops. So a lot of these are to bring good to the land and their people. But talking about ejaculation, sexual things that should be done in the bed, for the most part, that's where everybody's mind goes. But this is normal. If you want to do this constantly, okay, move there. If you can. I don't think you can right now, but if you could. Another one is the Sambian tribe. And the boys and girls of this tribe are supposed to drink semen. Let's get a little background on that one. The Sambian tribe of New Guinea have a oral history of disassociating their boys from their girls at very early age, from 7 to 10 years. The children of the tribe have to go through this extreme conditions, which actually include them being pierced, bleeding of the nose, and drinking semen of the tribe's mightiest warriors' sessions. So it's really kind of sort of a respect to the higher individuals in the tribe. Okay, and Mangaya Old women sleep with young boys. Yeah, we do that here. We have a lot of cougars in the mist. And, of course, here and pretty much probably just here, we find it like, why? And we're very judgmental for it instead of looking at why they are together. Aside from that, there are those individuals out there that are trying to be on the will for the money because they've researched who they are doing this to. Let's think of this more happy than sad. An island in the South Pacific Ocean is known as Mangia. Is famous because of its strange sexual traditions. It is actually known for this. Where the young boy, children of 13 years old, are supposed to have sex with women older than them. And the women teach them the tricks to please their partners when they get older. So they're taught very, very young what to do in the bedroom and by women. So, guys. Thought it was a guy thing, didn't ya? It's actually a woman who does it. Although I'm sure that can be looked at in a really weird way, but this is what they accept. Another unusual sexual practice that still exists is men took boys as lovers in young boys in ancient Greece. I don't think that this is something that is not unknown. We're having enough issues as it is. But in Greece, this is it's normal. For the men of Greece, sexual pleasure did not depend on gender and preference. They're a little bit more open than we are. I don't think they look at it as pornography or statutory rape or any other thing that would be against the law. So let's keep that here and keep doing that. And that means make it have laws. A kid's innocent, The men got attracted basically towards young boys and preferred them for getting intimate. I would say technically it's saying that it still exists. I would think that it is not still in existence. But then again, I don't live in ancient Greece and I don't know. I've never even been there. So I can't really exactly give a cohesive judgment on that, even if I wanted to. I probably wouldn't. But moving right along, some Nepali tribes in the Himalayas, obviously, where brothers actually share a wife, and this is kind of normal in other countries. Here, although there are a lot of people that are doing it and trying to instill that here, it is against the law. So they have more than one wife, but the men have more than one wife. The women have more than one husband here. So this is actually going on in this tribe in the Himalayas. Brothers in a family share a common wife for the complete married life. Polyandry is not only practiced in this region, but is also accepted as part of tradition and culture. So she's got actually a pick of the whole entire family. Yeah, get a little bit too close to home, and it's brothers, I guess. Now, girls of Trobriander tribe. I'm probably butchering this name, and I am so sorry. Get into sexual acts or have sexual acts from the age of 6. Now, this tribe is Papau? Yeah, Papau. Papua. New Guinea. It's justified and legal to have sexual intercourse with a girl of age 6, believe it or not. This is very disturbing and very disgusting. Yes, it is. Now, they know this, I would presume, or the person who's actually done this research. It's really, it's disgusting and disturbing, to come over through the fact that a girl whose age is to play with the toys is being someone's toy of pleasure. Not something that we really, really frowned upon against that here. Thank you. And again, laws are in effect for that reason. Even the boys get into sexual activity from the age of 10 to 12. So there it is, justified and legal. All right, we have, this one's really strange, but does occur. It is still apparently occurring. Women feed armpit-flavored apples to their partner in rural Austria. Okay. I'm going to stop it there, because when I come back, I'm going to finish this one. And we're going to take the first break in the show. So get a snack, get a drink, come back, get relaxed, and I will meet you back here with more Sex Talk with Andra.
Still on the search of that one true love? On the limbo in this crazy world of dating, marriage, relationships? Well, listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Relationship Podcast, your one-stop podcast for everything about relationships.
Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Sex Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Andra, and the topic about sex is from the point of view of an older woman. I hope we are now comfortable. We got a little snack and drink over alongside of us, so this way you don't have to get up and miss anything. But we are talking about unusual sexual practices in other countries. And compared to us, they, things that we would never do. Now, I'm going to say this now. What is legal and justified and practiced in other countries, tribes, or groups elsewhere does not mean that you can do it here. We do have laws in effect that protect children from this, and for the most part is against the law here. If you feel the need that you would like to try these things illegally, get a one-way ticket that way. You'll have to deal with, their laws, their regulations, and even trying to get into the country at this point in time. So I'm just saying this is not something that we should be practicing here. I'm not saying that behind closed doors it is not. This is a melting pot. Everybody comes from different cultures, values, and beliefs. So, but there are rules and laws and regulations in place here to protect. So, we are now discussing in rural Austria how women feed armpit-flavored apples to their partners. Where we left off, this is what we're going with. Young ladies, as they call it, women, they perform a traditional dance with apples, with slices of apples actually, stuffed in their armpits. So they're all getting sweaty, and the apples are in their armpits. After the dance is done, or whenever each woman is done, they go to a man of interest, and they offer that apple, or that slice of apple, to the man to be eaten. Now, if the man eats it, it's an indication that the man would always love having sexual pleasure, no matter from which body part it is. She's got a man for life. Next one is Love Huts by Kreung tribe in Cambodia, where teenage girls can sleep with different men till they find the one. And when I mean the one, yes, that person they're going to be with for the rest of their life. Obviously, this particular tribe is extremely famous all around the globe for having love huts. They're not unusual. They're still in existence and still being used. They're built by the elders of the family for their teenage daughters. All right. Now, several men would come and get intimate with the young girls until she finds her soulmate for the entire life. She makes the decision of who she wants. Again, not you guys. It's the woman. Now, in Haiti, sex is a part of a religious rite. Getting physical in Haiti is part of religious beliefs there. People believe that having sex makes the goddess of love happy and showers their married life with peace and love. That is very sweet. Apart from this, strange black magic practices are they're also being performed as spiritual belief. And all men and women take naked baths together under the waterfall, which also includes sexual dance. And the waterfall is absolutely beautiful. And I think a lot of people have a fantasy of having sex in a waterfall. Well, they actually have it. And it is a requirement. And moving right along, children can see their parents having sex in Marquise Islands. Now, I don't know about you, but for the most part, most kids in the United States, or in here generally, don't even believe their mother and father, their parents, the two people that have raised, fed, and clothed them, actually are still having sex, let alone walking in on them or being able to just sit there and watch. Ew. Most kids nowadays think, parents, what are you talking about? They don't even hold hands to do any of this. They don't even kiss. That's how we think. However, this particular island, sleeping with parents is something we all do, obviously, but watching them making it out in front of you, this is normally they're supposed to watch their own parents having sex. I guess it's a way of knowing that they're in love. I don't know. There's really not a big explanation on that. You're going to look into that one. We are going on to Muria tribe. And this is in Chhattisgarh. Now, young people of this tribe can't have multiple sex encounters without emotional attachment. Well, that's actually just called casual sex here. And so you got my tongue tied. This is central India. And it's this Chhattisgarh region. Gotul is practice, which is what it's called, in which young men and women encounter and spend great time together by singing, dancing, and having sex. At night, they engage with sexual intercourse, and in order to avoid pregnancy, girls drink a natural liquor as a herbal contraceptive. If it was that easy, why isn't it here in the States? Because Lord knows we could use that. Got to give it to them. If I think we took enough thought process and education, I think we could actually do this. But do practice safe sex. In Inas, Beag, it's spelled B-E-A-G, so. This is near Ireland. People make love with their underpants on. Please, underpants don't even make it past the front door if you're hot enough and going for it. But this is what's done in Ireland. Getting naked during intercourse is not a new thing. Obviously, we know that. That's like, get your clothes off. That's all there is to it. The people of a small island off the coast of Ireland wear their underpants during sex because they are so sexually repressed. Well, take your damn underwear off. Interesting, to say the least. Another one is wife stealing. Lord knows that's not an uncommon habit here. Wife stealing festivals in Wadahobi tribe. So they actually have a festival. This is in Nigeria in West Africa. Men try to win over wives of other men. Interesting enough. That seems a little bit more simple here. I'm not going to get into it. This happens during the yearly Grewal Festival. Grewol. Trying to look it up. When men of this tribe try to impress women, obviously. If a woman gets impressed and agrees to live with the man, she can marry him and stays for 1 year until the festival comes. So basically, in that year, if she wants to stay with her actual first husband, I guess she has to make that decision, but can't actually do anything until the festival comes around again. Ooh. You say domestic violence very badly. And I don't say that lightly either, because that is not something that is condoned. And really, really, if you are a victim of domestic violence, please reach out to an agency that can help you. Friends, family, everything. Just reach out there. It's not something that you should have to live through. Now, their relationship is considered legal at that point, obviously. If a woman gets gets impressed with another man, she is free to go with him, and her husband cannot stop her. This is legal, not in our country, but in other countries. Again, this is normal to them. Our normal to us is not normal to them, as we others. It's vice versa. This is in Iran, where you could pay for a temporary marriage, which actually this is a really smart thing. It might deter this high rising divorce rate in the States. What they do is this is it's practiced in Muslim religions, where some of the strict laws regarding sexual intercourse and relationships between men and women are like really put to the test. But in Iran, a young couple can request a temporary marriage, and they can pay for a short ceremony, which includes a written contract that states the time for which they will be married. Once done, they can live like husband and wife and can judge each other. If it doesn't work out, they can actually, it's like the marriage never happened. Everything just gets wiped out. But you are able to see, I can see a couple of things with this. It's a good thing, especially since if your mind is not already in that train of thought. But I can also see this getting so totally abused and just throwing everything out the window with regards to the sacredness of marriage and the sanctity of marriage and everything. Whereas you might just get those people out there just taking abuse of that system, getting constantly married. Oh, we'll do this, and they're doing it with like 9 million different other people. And then the laws, if you're married, it doesn't state here if it would, the laws and the things that come along with it with regards to married couples would be in effect, but I'm assured here that would be a major argument. Because if they have a temporary marriage certificate and you're supposed to be living as a married couple, then both partners should be able to benefit from the other's benefits. And then if they don't like each other, they probably just say they don't like each other just so that they can divorce and one person to claim half of the properties of the other. So I can see where that would get so totally out of hand here. But it does happen. It'd be something that they would probably think of. I don't think it would work here. It works there because they respect the law a lot more. And with that being said, we are going to go to break here. And if you ate through all your snack and drank down all your juice, please replenish those. You might want to get some water. Or just stay where you are comfortable and don't move. And I will meet you back here for more Sex Talk with Andra.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Sex Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Andra, where the topic about sex is from the point of view of an older woman. Welcome back to our third segment in the show, where we are talking about some unusual sexual practices that are still in effect. We are also continuing to, to move that along into, really unusual sexual fixations, which is in the world of unusual sexuality practices. So, this is, probably more geared towards our particular country, but I'm assured it is happening all over the world. We are just more in tune with it. Now, obviously, human sexuality is and has endless diversity, and it has been, growing as time goes on and things change. So, there are a lot of paraphilias that are out there, and a lot of fetishes that go along with it. Some that are not sexual, and some that are sexual. And when it does come to sex in our vast human lives, there are some that are rarer than rare sexual fetishes. Paraphilias, as the proper term is used, and one of those will be partialism. Now, if you're into feet, hands, or armpits, this might be what you have. It's really a sexual interest in a specific non-genital part of the body. And that's what partialism is, meaning that you are really over-focused and really over into the partial part of that person, basically. Now, foot fetishism, which is podophilia, seems to be, it's the most common. But, any other part of the body is subject to this partialism. We just kind of sort of go to the feet first because that's one of the most popular ones. There's one that will go armpits. It's called mashalagnia. Noses is nosophilia. So naso, nostril. Nose, nasal, nose. Hair, trichophilia. And it gets down to really specializing in them. I mean, everything has philia at the end, so it is a fetish. It's fixation, is what that stands for. And even the buttocks back there, pygophilia. Or predilection. Oh my goodness, I need to go back to school. And that is for derriere. But we all know what derriere is. I really believe that they sit up there and they take the first few letters of one thing with the first few letters of the other and make these names up, because I cannot, can't make any of these names up on my own. But we are on to the next philia, or sexual fixation, is clismaphilia. Now, some people have a fixation of receiving sexual pleasure from the introduction of liquids into the body via the anus. And that's what this is. Obviously, we all know enemas. Some people actually enjoy having enemas done to them for sexual stimulation. They also find that this has a feeling of fullness or internal pressure from the enema pleasing them, believe it or not. It's very, very pleasing to them. Most people, if you have been around long enough, know the movie Sybil. And anytime someone says enema, that's where I revert to, and it was not pleasant. So, like I said, it is to each their own. And if you enjoy it, continue to do so. This is a practice that can get really worry a lot. And this is depending on the individual's use to actually get off on it. Believe it or not, in 2005, case report, and this is in the Journal of Gastrointestinal Images. It's really giving one case where this 27-year-old man who gave himself an epoxy resin enema. All right, we all know what resin is. We also know what epoxy is. Not only is it always toxic, but you do not put that in your body. The resin hardened as soon as he inserted it into his rectum via glue gun, requiring operation, obviously. And they actually pulled out a perfect cast of his rectum from his body. He got enough in there, and it measured 6.2 inches long and weighed 0.66 pounds. Ouch. Masochism. Obviously, some people like a lot of pain during sex. They get aroused by beatings, bondage, and humiliation. Masochism includes asphyxiophilia, asphyxiation, self-asphyxia. This is actually really a potentially fatal habit. So, and most people know it as autoerotic asphyxiation. And this is where, you're deriving yourself of oxygen while masturbating. There have been a lot of deaths associated with this, so if you are going to try it, please make sure you know what you're doing for the most part. I do not ever say for you to go out and just do these. So, very, very, someone can get hurt, killed. So remember that. It's always fun to have sex and try something new. And I'll be the first to tell you. But there are some things that you do that can be very death-provoking. Now, they took a consensus of masochists. The majority maladjustment appears rare, believe it or not. Now, they did a study and they recruited men through this support groups and a sadist masochism magazine. They found that only 6% were emotionally disturbed by their own sexual behavior. So the people who are doing this are not disturbed by this. The people that have this fixation are not in any way moved by the fact that it has that, potential to be death-provoking. It's what gets them off. Urophilia. I don't think I gotta tell you anymore. Urine. It's sexual excitement over urine. If you are taking urines in the lab and that's why you got the job, not a good profession, and don't let anybody catch you. This particular paraphilia can manifest in excitement over peeing or being peed on. It's also considered to be in the masochist, to fall underneath that. Why? I guess it is the part where it comes into sadomasochistic fantasies of humiliation. Some people thrive off that. Some people get off on it. So we are all different. And believe it or not, there was a song that Ricky Martin had, not a song so much, but him himself enjoyed. He did this in an interview to Blender magazine in 2005, that he loved giving the golden shower in the shower. But he's in the shower, it's washing away. There's other ways of they're looking at it. Are you really getting that excitement over it? I think there's a little bit more to that. I don't know. Something to look into. Moving along. Telephone scatologia. Ooh, that one's a big one. Never even heard of this one. People are turned on by making indecent phone calls. Okay. They get aroused by calling unsuspecting people and talking explicitly or trying to trick their victims into revealing something sexual about themselves. That is a first. Believe it or not, that there was a study that was done on this where, people who had this fixation actually had a history of criminal behavior, which does not surprise me. And, the antisocial thought process that goes along with that. So I am not surprised at all. Really weird. Plushophilia. Obviously, a fixation with fuzzy, fluffy toys. Stuffed animals. Plushies. They really like these. Now, mostly with this, it's a sexual interest in stuffed animals. Obviously, you say plushies, we're not meaning furries. Furries are humans in costumes. Plushies don't exactly move around. Although today, with technology, they can do a hell of a lot more. But, their thought process is just on stuffed animals. Nothing more, nothing less. And they probably go as far as, believe it or not, people who actually suffer from this, it was found, were mainly men. So men, you can have that one. But there is a website out there called Fox Wolfie, quote unquote, Galen, and he's a member of the plushie community. And he found that people's tastes in stuffed animals varied widely. Well, I would presume that they did, because there is a wide range of stuffed animals out there. And it all depends on what you are interested in with the plush. And people do go far enough to have sex with the stuffed animal. Dacrophilia. People with this tears are no turn off for people with this particular fixation. They actually get turned on by someone crying it is the humiliation. They actually get sexually aroused by someone being upset in tears. They profit off of that emotion and what that person's going through. So, not really something they want to be around, although I've never even really heard about this, but we will continue with this one when we get back, because we're going to take the final break in the show. So just stay comfortable, and when I return, we'll continue on with some unusual sexual practices here, there, and everywhere with Andra.
Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? The GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast is a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts America's Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today. Download the GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Sex Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Andra, where the topic about sex is from the point of view of an older woman. Welcome back to the final segment in the show, where our topic is about some unusual sexual practices and even rarer sexual fixations that are out there. We all have fixations on things. We all have little bits of everything, basically. Some people actually go and continually act them out, or that's what they see, and it's a lot more stronger. And when we left off at the end of the last segment, we were talking about dicralagnia, which is where people are actually turned on, and they're considered sexual sadists. They're turned on by the humiliation of watching other people basically suffering, crying. And they'll think it's a total turn on. It's very arousing. It's from either sight or sound of crying, and arousing, or find that emotional release and comfort appealing, believe it or not. It is very, very unusual to have this philia, and especially for men, believe it or not. One study, which was not really that long ago, found that the scent of tears decreases both testosterone and sexual desires in men. All right, men, we're back on the women. You got one for the day. That's it. Fetishism. Now come on. We go out when we get these stilettos, just a nice pair of heels. Always is sexy. And you can appreciate that. Women walking in high heels are more judged as feminine and attractive than women walking in flats, believe it or not. It's more of the points of light were, indicating gait and not women's shapes or bodies. So there's a study that was actually done out there how wearing a pair of nice, and usually the stilettos or the shoes are red or even black, and they show off a bit of toe cleavage, which is always sexual to and attractive, and it enhances attraction. It's really just that fetish of an attraction to a non-living object, those pair of shoes. Now, it's really believe it or not, the most common objects of fixation are underwears and shoes. Shoes, we're talking about, yes. It's generally a pair of stilettos. However, underwears, but that doesn't surprise me. Women go out, they go to Victoria's Secrets, Fredericks of Hollywood, or even online and buy that sexy pair of underwears. I mean, they range from crotchless to actually just a stick-on in the front, believe it or not. And this is a total turn-on. And if we're going back to unusual practices in other countries, whereas, Russia, I believe, or Ireland, one or the other, where they have sex with their underwears on. You can actually do that with these and become to literal sexual intercourse, because there's not much to these underwears. Nothing's really holding them up but the tape. And that's really just to cover the front. So obviously, if a woman's wearing them, she would probably shave her vagina area, her mound, her pubic mound, so that it would stay a lot better. Or if you don't prefer to do that, at least trim it down and shave so that you could just put it right on there. There you go. There's homemade underwears for the most part. They're out there. And that's not something that I'm really surprised at, because there's always one thing that you really like when it comes to sex. So, toilism. Okay, this was really weird. I've never even heard of this one. It's actually people who like to watch their partner have sex with somebody else. So they're not really affected by that three's a crowd rule. Believe it or not, this is also known as cuckoldism. Okay, that was weird. Cuckoldism. I'm telling you, you can't make these names up. I don't know how they did. Well, it's actually after now that I've answered my own question, after the medieval terminology describing a man whose wife cheats on him. And toilism is also sometimes used to refer to any sexual activity involving three people, even when cheating is not involved. Well, there's now a name to the threesome. I think this is more towards, it's more an appeal to men than it is women. And the fact that they're more into that group sexy thing. And women really are not. And if you ask generally any man, what is your fantasy? And it's to have a threesome. You might just get that one that turns around and says, I actually want to watch you having sex with somebody else. Okay. And there's so many opened relationships nowadays. I am not surprised by that. Next one, really big word I have never said. Acrotomophilia. I hope you all got that. This is actually a sexual interest in amputees. people who practice this and have this philia, this fixation, considered amputated limb stumps to be erotically exciting. Sexual interest in a particular amputee is not this fixation. So it's more, that's more of a paraphilia, which is based on fetishizing amputation, not falling in love or lust with a particular person who happens to have lost a limb. Total difference. You're really just sexually turned on by the fact that they have a limb missing. That's it. You're fascinated in what it looks like, what you could do to it sexually. And believe it or not, which again, I'm not surprised, that people will actually, who have this fixation with the amputees, will become an amputee themselves, just so that they can get their fascination on. And believe this is actually a paraphilia, which is called apotemnophilia. They're becoming an amputee because the nub, the stump, is sexually arousing. It's going to be with them all the time. They can get sexually aroused all the time. Very sad if somebody's actually working on it, but and believe it or not, with this particular one, very rarely will somebody go in and have elective surgery to have limbs removed, which I don't think a doctor would do anyway. There had to be something wrong. I'm not telling you that there is not some doctor out there that would do it. I just think that, yeah, it's very, very, really, it's really rare. Really, really rare. You're not going to get a doctor to do it, but there are those backstreet doctors that will. I'm assured. I don't know. They are out there. Everybody has different views, and everybody has different, what are they called? Fetishes. Whether you want to admit it or not, you do. Because it's a sexual turn on to you. And if your partner is willing to do it, then obviously it will be done. And you shouldn't have to worry, but there are some where it has become really, when it becomes an overly fixation where you're going to become an amputee, yeah, that's when it gets extremely out of whack, and people are being hurt because of it. Now, there are some extremely strange sexual rituals that have died out, which is very good, because there'd be lots and lots and lots of problems, and we're going to go to a few of them. How's that sound? The first one, believe it or not, spending your first night married in a sack. Yes, an actual burlap sack. Very, very strange, but back in the 17th century, the English used a practice sometimes known as bundling. When a teenage couple got married, they would be allowed to sleep in a bed together, but their parents didn't want to have another mouth to feed 9 months down the line. So their way to combat this would put the girl into a sack, tie it tightly around her waist, so her husband couldn't get in, could not go near her. So much for the marriage bed. Yeah, they can't get to each other, they can't take it off, they can't do anything. Yikes. Another one that has ended, which we are very happy, customs are rarely weird, but Papua New Guinea, this is one of the ones I spoke of earlier, where this is considered actually one of the cruelest rites of passage of all for boys in the Sambia tribe. So I may have not talked about this, but hey, let's go through it. Before they were accepted as men into the tribe, they were separated from the women and then forced to give fellatio to the strongest warriors in the tribe. Okay, here, now that answers that question, is that still being done? It is not. It has stopped. So the unusual sexual ritual that I spoke of earlier in the first segment of the show, when we were going first or second, is not actually in practice anymore. Now, so I take it they're getting to the point where they understand that it is very cruel or whatever. But the reason why they were doing this was the boys were then considered men and welcomed back into their tribe. So some sort of humiliation, maybe. The Gujarro people of Colombia, they believed that if a woman can successfully trip a man over while you are dancing with him, the two of you must have sex. That actually sounds like a really cute ritual. Someone's going to bang their head and hurt really bad or the like, but it sounds like a fun ritual. But they don't do it anymore. Oh well. Can you imagine being out in a club and all the women tripping the guys? Boy, the cops will be busy. Moving along. Love potions were seriously nasty things. Obviously, all through the ages, people used to drink/eat love potions to try and improve the odds of winning over the opposite sex. The ingredients that went into them were usually awful, though, ranging from gypsum, which is used in wall construction, yuck, to hyena eyes. Ooh, scary, 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 scary. Now, in France, love potions would contain flies and menstrual blood. That in it, believe it or not, there is a recipe that's at the end of that. Ooh, scary, scary, scary. And it's the herb periwinkle. And this is a really old one. And the herb periwinkle, Albertus Magnus tells us, being pulverized with earthworms and sengreen, creates affection between man and wife by putting a portion of that in their food. Ew. A small quantity of this mixture preparation with some sulfur being thrown into a fish pond will destroy the fish. So imagine what it was doing to the people that were actually drinking it or putting it in their food. Ew, 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 ew. Now there were places in Ireland where they never took their clothes off. This is the one with the underwear. So they answers the second question. They no longer do that. And you do take your clothes off now to have sex. So I'm building you up and knocking you down. Well, this one, which is not being practiced anymore, is the church chose missionary as the least sinful position. Okay. Sounds about right. The church had a lot to say about sex and really basically decided that missionary was the only position couples could do without being sinful. So there was not a lot of, change or newness or I don't know, differentiating, or I don't know what you want to call it, but there was none of that ever-changing sexual behavior in the bedroom. If the woman was on top or if doggy styles was being tried, these would mess with traditional male and female roles. I don't think that is a problem anymore, believe it or not. And they actually, at one point, like when this was actually in effect, could be sentenced to 3 years. There was actually a jail sentence. So that one is going. Now, we are at the end of the show, but I'm going to give you one more of a tradition that is no longer being practiced, which is probably why we are growing so vastly in the sexual realm of sexuality. But ancient Chinese men were not allowed to ejaculate. This was like way back ancient China. Many people were into Taoism, and this particular belief is that we all have a lot of qi, which is essentially our life force. Okay, and we all know this through if we're taking any type of martial arts or practicing Buddhism or things like, something religious, and that qi is a big thing. Your inner qi. Inside the body, as it goes on, the qi is called jing, and they believe that sperm contains the most amount of jing. Losing jing can cause illness or death. This is what they believed in. So what they would do, due to believing this, they would have sex but had to not ejaculate, which was very difficult, obviously, because 1, you want to get to that. 2, that is basically the end result, and it's fun. Nowadays, guys just ejaculate all over in anything in their way, usually a woman's breast, in a woman's mouth, all over them, because writing their name, it's like writing their name in the snow. But this was something that was a practice there, and there you go. They couldn't do it. It has stopped that practice. Now they have all the fun in the world and ejaculate all over the place. With that being said, I am at the end of my show for today. So, as always, please, I ask you to practice safe sex, if not for yourself, but for your partner, and vice versa. Also, if you are trying something new, please educate, communicate with your partner, and consent between both of you. Very, very, or anybody who is involved. Very, very important. So I do thank you for tuning into the GSMC Sex Podcast, which is brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I ask that you please hit the subscribe button. Give 5 stars. It helps me, but not only me. It helps the GSMC Podcast Network to know that you are enjoying what they are giving you, and so that they can provide more to you. Also, I do ask that you reach out to us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Hit the little thumbs up button or that little heart, show some love, and please give a positive comment or put something in there what you would like to, hear talked about on the show. So again, thank you for tuning in, and either way you want to look at it, you want to try something new in a new country, a little difficult right now, go do it if you can. But do have an awesome sexual experience where it stops you. Good night or good day, and until next time, bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sex Podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcasts on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type in GSMC to find all of our shows from the GSMC Podcast Network. From sex and relationships to health and wellness, life and happiness, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's episode of the Golden State Media Concepts Sex Podcast.